Next up, speaker, COO of Total Package Hockey, Francis Anzalone. He's at backstage. He's coming out right now. And again, happy hour, the stand. They're writing it right down the road. I'll be there, 5:30. Let's go.
Great job, Paul.
Okay, put your hands together, guys. Francis, welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you, Kay.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you all are the warriors in the room because you've stayed here till the end. I know I'm cutting into happy hour, so I'll try to do my best here today to keep this brief and on point. So I've been here all day, and I've been fortunate enough to listen and learn just like all of you. And one thing to me is abundantly clear being here today at Next Up. We are all saying the same effing thing. And that's a good thing. We're just saying it in different ways. So if you'll allow me, on behalf of TPH, what I'm going to try and do is just put my own little spin on this here today. The reality is, and it's been enforced through every presenter today, whether you're an instructor, a coach, a leader of a sports organization, an academy operator, we are all in the business of, as we like to put it in TPH, supercharging development. That's the business that we're in. If we can accelerate, not rush, but accelerate the rate at which our athletes develop, that's good for them, that's good for the customer, that's good for the business, that's good for us. Rob from Fortified and Danny used the term, everybody wins. I love that. If we supercharge development on and off the field, everybody wins in the end. Now, what I want to do here today is I want to simply stimulate you to think about how we supercharge development on and off the field. I want to stir stuff up a little bit. So when you go to the stand in a couple minutes, you can grab your peers, your fellow team members, and you can really talk about how. Because after all, when we did the Slido poll this morning, 73% of you said that your focus into the future is all about elevating the experience. So what I'd like to do here today is just offer you 3 simple tips or strategies for how we can supercharge development on and off the field. I'm going to zip through this. I decided not to use this just in the interest of time. Okay, here we go. 3 ways to supercharge development. The first point I have for you today is rooted in the most fundamental truth in coaching. I think you would agree. They don't care how much we know until they know how much we what? Care. Absolutely. So I think that if we're going to supercharge development, the first thing we've got to do is we've got to ask ourselves, what does care mean in our organization, and what's our process for displaying it on a daily basis? One of the first things I do with my players at the start of a season, I stole this from the great author John Gordon, is I ask them to define their caring trademark. What's that one thing they're going to do every day as an individual LLC that shows their teammates that they care? For Derek Jeter, it was always sprinting to first base. Go on your YouTube when you're at the stand in a little bit, having a ginger ale or 10, and search Derek Jeter's last at bat. Do you know what he had to do in his last at bat? He had to sprint to first base. We've got to ask ourselves what our caring trademarks are as organizations. The number one entity or group, I'm stating the obvious, that we have to define and display care to are the individual athletes. I think the number one way that we can do this is to tell them not what they want to hear, but what they need to hear to be successful. It doesn't mean we don't ask questions. It doesn't mean we don't listen. It doesn't mean we don't show empathy. It means we recognize that as coaches, we have the responsibility to hold the tough conversations. You just heard one of the gentlemen on stage talk about it. I was behind the curtain, so it was hard to see who was speaking. But I heard it They want us to do it, they being the parents. The great Tom Landry, coach of the Dallas Cowboys, once said, "A coach is someone who tells you what you don't want to hear, who has you see what you don't want to see, so you could be who you always knew you could be." I love that. We've got to be that, and we've got to do that. I think it's important that we define how we're going to care for the athletic development process. This is so key. Practice. Are we emphasizing habits, concepts, details, and skills? Because the habits, concepts, and details is what's really going to set them off on their athletic journey. Are we challenging the mind as much as we're challenging the body? I would argue at 3 to 4 times the rate. Are we making them faster physically and also faster mentally? Because we've got to do both. Because in nearly every sport, I think you'll agree, if you can't think, it's really hard to play, especially at the highest level. The great Bob Knight once said, "Every athlete has the will to win, but the best of the best have the will to prepare to win." They may not all want to do it, gang, but every one of us in this room can teach preparation. So here's my challenge to you. League Apps likes me to come up here because I hit you with stuff. Because I get hit with stuff every day because I'm in your shoes. Can we, in practice, on practice nights, do one thing every event to add value? To teach them how to eat right, sleep right, study right, train right, yes, practice right and play right, but also think right and live right. Maybe it's a 5-minute video session, a 10-minute talk on nutrition, a quick chat about mental performance. What can you add on practice nights to teach them about preparation? Just think about it as you plan for your next season, milestone, or big event. Okay, the last group really took care of point number 3. So I don't feel I need to talk too much about how important it is to care about the coaches. You know, Zach talked earlier about vulnerability being a skill. So I'm going to be a little vulnerable with you right now. One of the challenges I go through in my role, and I've been the COO of TPH since 2017, sometimes I wrestle with, you know, you're not coaching a team of 18 to 23 hockey players every day anymore, big shoots. Are you really having an impact? A mentor of mine once told me, and our founder, one of the finest men I know, Nathan Bowen, who's in the room, reminds me of this regularly. As COO of TPH, I work with 200 part and full-time team members on a daily basis. If just one message I deliver resonates with them, I've 1 to 200x'd my impact because they're taking it to the thousands of athletes that we get to work with in TPH. But you know what? I got to get better too. The coaches got to get better. So whether it's assigning a senior mentor to your coaches, investing in their professional development. I think it was Craig that mentioned in the last panel, teaching them how to have those tough conversations with parents. We've got to make sure we're investing in our coaches because they are the primary developers in our organizations. And in the academy model, because we're fortunate in TPH, we run or support 20 of them. We're in many instances spending more time with them than the parents are. So we got to be really good at helping our coaches deliver care on a daily basis. Okay, we've got to treat the parents as partners. You've been hearing this starting with Jeremy in the morning all the way through. I think it was Craig in the last group that talked about it takes a village. The parents are the customers. I want you to think about this for a second. We are in competition for their dollars from a business perspective with other youth sports organizations, yes. I don't think anyone has mentioned this today. If they did, I apologize, I missed it. We're also in competition, to an extent, with the arts, the sciences, and other forms of recreation. It's not just competition within friendly competition with the folks in this room. We've got to find a way to get them on our side so they can become, I love this term, development multipliers. If they reinforce the messages that we preach on a daily basis, it's going to help supercharge development. I want to share this thought with you. You could tell me if I'm crazy when I get off the stage, or you could stand up and yell, hey, you're nuts right now. It's a small group. This is informal. We've got to consider making the parents part of the meeting before the meeting. In sports, and I think this is true in business, Brian, Jeremy, there's 3 meetings. There's the meeting before the meeting, and then there's the meeting after the meeting. Johnny, I'd like to sit down with you tomorrow at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'd like to talk about your performance in the last 5 games. That's the meeting. We sit with Johnny, we talk with Johnny, Johnny leaves the room, and there's a pretty good chance Johnny's then gonna go and do what? He's got to text or call the parent, or if he's a hockey player, or she, probably the agent or the advisor. I don't know if you're seeing it in the other sports, but the agents and the advisors are big in hockey right now. And that's the real meeting, the meeting after the meeting. I get up in front of the room and I say, I do a video session with the players, and I walk out of the room and I say, oh, that was a great video session. And then they're all talking. That's the real meeting. That's why you need a great leadership group so they can handle the meeting after the meeting. Swap that out with the parents. So if you want to maximize the meeting and the meeting after the meeting, you got to take the time in the meeting before the meeting to talk to the parents. Hey, Mrs. Smith, just wanted to let you know tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'm going to meet with Johnny. I'm going to challenge him on these 3 points, A, B, and C. I would really love it if you could reinforce the message. They may come back with you with X, Y, and Z, but minimally, I think they're going to appreciate you over-communicating, giving them a heads up, and I think you're increasing the chance that they will become a developmental multiplier for you, at least in that particular instance. Third point. And this was just talked about in the last group. And I think this is so key today. Steve from Steel was so passionate about this. With NIL, social media, we've got to go out of our way to praise and promote process over outcome. Anyone know who Kurt Signetti is? Kay knows who he is. He might be the best example we've got, if this is your vibe, it doesn't have to be your vibe, in like new school, old school. Kurt Signetti is coaching the number 3 football team in the nation at Indiana University. They just had one of the biggest wins, if not the biggest win, in program history last week against Oregon. They're on a high right now. Media asked Signetti 2 days ago, well, you're playing Michigan State this weekend, 0-3 in the Big Ten. What's your message to the guys? Ain't no secrets. I'll tell you what the message was to the guys, he said. Ignore the noise, eliminate the clutter, focus on the process. I am extremely confident, as somebody that's got like a man crush, a coach man crush on Kurt Signetti, that he has defined for his team what process means. Have you defined what process means? Because along with development and culture, it's like, it's a buzzword, the process, the process, the process. Have we defined it as an organization? Once we do, I think we've got to spam our players and our families with processes messages because we can never talk about it enough. But you've got to define what it means. Jess talked about the importance of messaging it on a daily basis in her presentation, which was awesome, by the way. I'll share this with you, and it ties to business too. I was listening to a podcast with this big marketing guru recently, and he talked about how as recently as 5 years ago, customers, people, only needed to see a message about 2 or 3 times before they decided, I want to engage forward. I want to do more with you. I want to buy it. I want to fill out an inquiry form. Now in 2025, people need to see or hear a message 9 to 12 times before they even decide, I want to take the next step. The point is, we've got to strategically spam them with process messages rooted in the same core, just maybe worded different ways. That is so important today. I think it's important that we celebrate process victories constantly. When the blocked shot happens, when the player runs to first base, when we see an athlete working extra after practice, whatever it is that fits under your process definition, I think we've got to celebrate it. One of the quickest ways we can do that, in my opinion, take some time and ask yourself as coaches, run your finger down your roster. Who is our catch 'em doing it right player? And EM, catch 'em. So it could be him or her. Who is our catch 'em doing it right player? Who's the player that does it right a lot of the time? Point that person out. Put that person on the main stage, in my opinion, when they do process right in practice and in games. Because, and research supports this, I'm not going to put graphs up on the screen, athletes today in this generation absorb messages the most when it comes from their peers, because they care most about acceptance in that room. Figure out who your best process player is, celebrate him or her, and don't be afraid to do it in front of the group. And just watch what will happen. If we want to supercharge development, I'd ask you to consider defining care and displaying it daily, treating the parents as partners, and praising and promoting process over outcome. Every presenter here today has talked about these points in some way, shape, or form. I'm just here to try to tie it all together and put me and Nathan Bowen and TPH's own little spin on this here on the main stage at Next Up. We're fortunate in TPH to be involved in a good bit of stuff. We really believe that the academy model, which we're fortunate to operate in 20 locations, provides a tremendous opportunity to supercharge development. If you'd like to talk further about our experiences, our successes, our failures, because we've got some of those, grab us, call us, text us. We'd love to chat further and see if we can help you do what it is you do. I never like to leave the main stage at Next Up without sharing one final quote, one final tidbit to leave you with. And it's a Japanese proverb. Some of you have probably heard it before. Better than 1,000 days of diligent study is one day with a great teacher. Every one of us in this room has the ability to be a great teacher. And every one of us in this room has the ability to supercharge development. I hope I've played just a small part in stimulating you to think about how, and maybe, just maybe, this day here at Next Up has motivated you to supercharge development 1% to 2% better tomorrow then you did it today. I've enjoyed being with you. Thank you very much.